And for those who are new to Soulogy through Periscope and Twitch, this is our primary show. It's called Soul Speaks 5D. It's where we have conscious conversations. It's not a typical Q&A. Questions can be asked from both sides. We just show up and we try to utilize the spontaneous and intuitive, creative, imaginative, and courageous aspects of our soul to get raw and real and just talk about things from the human aspects level. We are going to do a couple of technical things. I'm going to play the intro. It's 1 minute and 19 seconds. So Glenn, you can go in and refresh the page. We are connected now, and you can share it around during this next minute. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so here we go. Be right back. Sorry about that. All right, everybody, we've got a special show here. This is really cool because we're actually addressing or presenting or being a part of collaborating with several different frequencies here. Now, Glenn and Donna Willard have a strong presence. I was not aware of them until a couple of days before the last show we had with Glenn, which didn't go too well because the tech ran out. But it was very powerful and very lively for the entire time we were on there. So after that happened, I went back and I kept an eye on, on what he was doing, which was also what she was doing. So we have two individual souls who seem to be very much in line within themselves with what we call the masculine and feminine. Then we also have what we might call a sacred union, the frequency of the Trinity, pure love, service to self, service to others, service to humanity, all in one singular step. And also a couple of, people here who have had a pretty wide berth of experience on an individual level and as a couple through these through the last more than the last few years actually with them, but through this transition that we're calling ascension, and my wife calls growing up. Welcome to the show. Well, I told you the divine feminine frequency was leading the way, and we can talk about that. We were talking earlier. I'm just making a joke. The thing is that I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. And also thank you for your service to humanity, both of you. And
well,
welcome.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be working with you and sharing this information. We haven't caught, you do so much for the community, and I haven't caught a lot of your shows, but several of them. And you interview some amazing people, and there's a growing number too, which I think is awesome.
Yeah,
I think that creates you're actually creating the community.
Yeah. So you're establishing the links that's drawing us all together. And just from our first talk, I should say, I've got a few more subscribers from that. So that's good.
Well, that's typically what happens, and it's so funny. And I don't want to get into the soulogy history and all that, but you do bring up a good point, and I think it's important sometimes to restate things. So, because we are fusing the non-physical and the physical, and the voice is such a big part of that. But this is we were talking about it today on our Monday morning show. There is no doctor. There's going to be a little fractal piece out of the infinite, out of the universal, that has all the attributes of the universal, and like we're all doing in our singular journeys, continuing to add frequencies to an ever-expanding vibration. But yes, to the point that you're making, that this community is getting bigger and bigger. And I'm not talking about soulogy. I'm talking about the frequency that we all share together. Soulogy is just another word for life force or Holy Spirit or whatever you want to call it. But you guys, again, are the way showers. You've been out there for a long time, and also anchoring in the collaborative aspect of true partnership and union, and which doesn't always have to be romantic, but there's a lot to be said for that, because that's really a huge part, I think, of what's leading us. Yeah, what's that?
That's icing on the cake, the romantic aspects.
I know it is, isn't it? That's why I'm so tired here drinking 5 cups of coffee. She won't keep her hands off me at night. I'm kidding. It's the other way around, kind of. I don't know. It's just such a dimensional experience when you get to that level. It's just like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, but anyway, so, I know the other show got cut short a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of like, wipe the slate clean and come back. And now, especially the both of you are on, which I really, really appreciate. When did you guys wake up? And did you wake up together? How did that happen? How did you guys come together, and when?
Okay.
Do you want me to do it?
Well, no, let me.
Okay, you got to go back through your dating.
We'll both do it. But anyway, going back to my first wake-up call in 1968, we talked about that. I ended up in a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
It wasn't a nervous breakdown. It was an awakening. But to the level I could no longer cope with 3D reality. I was walking on cloud 9, so to speak, and was very, very ungrounded. And so they put me on medication and tried to tell me I was ill, which I was just better than better was the problem. So anyway, so I went back to sleep, and then had another wake-up call at 27, and I kind of went back to sleep, but a little more awake, and just got back into the workaday world. But then decided to get an education. At 36, I went back to university, and that's where I met Donna. So I'll let you take it from there.
Mm-hmm. I thought your questions were very interesting and very insightful. So I'll go ahead and do a rough list. My first awakening experience was at 15. Wow. And I think we would call it a kind of download, but it was technically a Satori experience. It was union with everything. Wow. Happened spontaneously. I was dealing with a crisis at the time, and it was spirit showing me a way out of the crisis. That started a process of researching and reading and trying to learn. But keep in mind that would be, let's see, I was 15. That's so in the 60s.
You're 29 now, so right. So that was what, 14?
Right. I wish. I will go ahead and be truthful. I will be 70 at my next birthday.
Wow, you guys look fantastic.
Thank you.
We're working at it. You got to be active. That's the whole key.
Yeah.
So it was a long-term quest, and I met Glenn in 1990 when we were working. I was the visiting artist to the University of Nevada, and I was there to set up a bronze foundry for them. And Glenn was in the class. I wasn't his teacher. I was the visiting artist. But Glenn identified himself as a machinist, and they're safe when you are doing bronze pours. So I said, oh, you're on the bronze team. I didn't date him until after the semester was over, and he took me out to dinner. But we were finishing up a bronze pour, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning in Reno, Nevada, and so we went out to dinner. And
breakfast.
Breakfast, yes. That's all you can do, but you can do that there. But the detail was we immediately connected on spiritual awareness. And
Lots of different levels, actually.
yes. And what was fascinating is that's often a trouble point for couples. You know, one will be moving ahead. We've been very lucky in that we've both been exploring lots of things, paralleling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, like one of the first things was reading the book together, Bringers of the Dawn, which we talked a little bit about before.
Should trigger some of the move to New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
So a long-term commitment to spiritual awareness, and in my case, reading lots of books.
So we're growing parallelly, I guess, if that's a word.
We just made it up. I love that word. I love making it parallelly. Parallelly. Wait, I don't know. How would you say? How would you? I actually like that word. How do you?
Exactly the same. It means you're working on. For example, I love workshops and doing them, and I had the pleasure in 1999 of doing a workshop with John Goldingham, who was at one point president of the Spiritualist Church for New Zealand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was doing a workshop on channeling. There were 16 of us there, and about 8 of us actually made contact with an entity that would talk. And I got a visual image, and we had long conversations, and there's about a 14-year period gap in between. And then just, again, informing myself any way I could, Corey Good talked about the Anshar, and he said the Anshar made an effort to contact surface humans to serve as guide and guidance for them. And with often saying, oh, I'm your guiding spirit, or I'm an angel, or something like that, because to explain that they're an Anshar is a whole nother issue.
Just so people know, can you tell them what an Anshar is?
Certainly. There's a good possibility, you know, all things are only in possibility because the universe is a multiverse, that we have a honeycomb earth, and the Anshar, or the Elgarthans, are a group of people who are actually humans from the future who came to Earth to help with the transition of the third density surface beings.
Right.
They're advanced. It means they're a telepathic race. I've learned a lot more about them. The minute that I knew the Anshar existed, I asked my channel if she was an Anshar, and she said yes. And at that point, the conversation opened up enormously. And I tend to be clairaudient, and that was, we spent a lot of time prior to that talking about gardening and interesting things, so I had reached a conversational level. But since then, I've learned more. And then Glenn talked a little bit about going to ESETI Ranch and getting a transpersonal clearing.
Yeah.
That was my first introduction to off-planet guides, because I already had a skill with communication. I suddenly had off-planet guides.
Yeah.
And that was even more astonishing as an idea. So Glenn gets pictures and words and names. You can usually get the name of the guide faster than
I don't have a conversational connection, but I get occasional phrases and images, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds like us over here. I want to ask you real quick before you continue. Sure. So it's interesting to me because there's always been a pull from Inner Earth, Garthians, and so on. I've always been very organic, you know, from the Earth, regardless of my soul lineage, but very much rooted in that. And Morgan, very, very galactic. I never even talked and considered galactic terms until we connected. But my point is this: you made the reference that was your first off-planet connection, and you were alluding that the Agarthians, the Inner Earth, are part. To me, that's what you're alluding in a positive way, that they're of the Earth.
Yes.
Do you? Yeah, you see where I'm going with it. Is for somebody who has these levels of communion with the other side of the veil, let's just say, is there a distinct difference between the inner Earth family as opposed to the off-planet family?
Yes and no. Depends on purely the level of the off-planet family. And do remember that most of the information coming through is saying that this galaxy is mainly human beings with some variations.
Also, I want to include the fact that we are eternal beings, and this is not our first ride here on Earth.
Oh, no.
Our histories, I mean, I've been delving into my cosmic history. I've seen a few past lives here on Earth, but I'm also starting to access cosmic past lives. Like we know we're Pleiadian. We're also Octarian, Orion, Syrian. And so we've been there, done that, but slowly gaining more and more access to who we really are. And that's the whole ball game right there. Who are we really? And
all of the above.
Yeah, and who is it? On the Matrix? Know thyself. Yeah.
But one of the other details for me, I've been trying to get the history of the expansion through the galaxy, the pattern of those civilizations, because it itself is an expansion, and Earth itself is a colony of several off-planet races.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. The only thing that would explain this confusion.
And there's another thing too I'd like to get y'all's perspective on that I think you just cleared for me. So I've always believed in my, that innate thing, that knowing, which is just my own personal, it's not everyone's gospel, that when we're talking to, when we're talking about Syrians, Orions, Lyrans, the Pleiadians, what we might consider the Galactic star family, right? And people will say, I'm from the future, I'm Pleiadian, or and I'm always like, I think that's our past. If there were a linear context, and I do see that being a difference where the inner Earth, the Agarthians, to me, feel more like a futuristic frequency. Does that jive with you guys, or do you just see them as one and the same?
They're here now, but
they've been here for a long time.
They've been here for a long time. So we are them, but in the future.
Yeah.
So
there's a merger later.
Yeah.
When we can reach fourth density and understand their culture. And their culture's fascinating. By the way, their culture is not pure fourth density. Their
fourth,
children,
fifth,
it's a third, fourth, fifth. The children in the adolescent period go back to a third density behavior. They're just like us, and they have to help their children through it to make it back up to the telepathy of fourth density.
It's kind of like here, especially with teenagers. A lot of them just kind of go crazy for a while, and then they grow up, so to speak.
They've got that problem.
They
all small children.
You've been through that. You had kids.
I'm thinking of myself. I think I just got out of my teenage years last year. Thank God for Morgan Lee. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. That's interesting. That's interesting though, because my wife always says a copy is a copy is a copy, and if that dynamic is real, that child or those children in that inner Earth scenario are actually going through the same journey we are here, just in a more of a concentrated,
probably a little more smoothly, I would hope.
Yeah, no doubt. But I'm also when you're telling me that, I'm also thinking, wow. Because I see so much of what comes to me over the years has been in a paradoxical manner, right? You think it's one thing, but it's the opposite. So you're sitting there telling me this, I'm going, wow. And so maybe we're the paradox. Maybe we're the inverse of that. These kids coming in now, right?
Oh, wow.
Are like bringing us back to telepathy. They're carrying that frequency of the multidimensionality and the reality. Yeah. So
I trying to remember how much we talked about the telepathy, because I was
an experience.
I was a full-blown telepath, and I just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of energy shutting that down because it was just picking up too much of the astral plane and the just the lower vibrations of telepathy. But so I closed it down so hard that, well, I can cope, but I get the occasional bleed through now and then, which is, I think everyone does actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
of picking up other people's thoughts.
Well, you know, I think that, and that's interesting that you say that too about yourself, because, you know, you can really see the collective, we'll call it the universal energy. You can really see, touch, and feel it with more and more clarity, like everything else is becoming more clear, including our telepathy, and probably that's all linked together. But like when you were going through that, because if we look back 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 2012, there wasn't the same dynamics in the field. There was still
Yeah.
a lot of distortion, projection running around. There was a lot of separation frequency. And so I can't imagine being somebody who was, you know, kind of like slingshotted out in front of the crowd. There's not a whole lot of, you know, support from the energetic field on the realm, on the earth.
Yeah, this was just that happened back in the 80s, early 80s.
Starting in the 60s. You talked
Oh,
about
yeah.
the 60s being very critical or pivotal points. I agree completely. That's the turning point.
But yeah, the flower power and the hippie generation.
And all the research.
One time, a guy came into my shop and he's kind of very questioned, and he was serious about it. He says, "Are you a hippie?" And I just got a laugh out of that.
Right.
And I wasn't really, you know, because
So, I mean, I'd like to hear from both y'all on this, you know, as individuals and as a couple, you know, because you have a really unique experience. We've probably had 50 couples on this show.
wow.
And I can only think of maybe two that had the longevity, maybe three. But what's it like to be having these experiences in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, you know, to be extremely sensitive and telepathic, not being able to handle it because there wasn't enough of support. You know? And then to have the current present level of expansion in terms of our consciousness here, you know, especially this year, you know, the telepathy expanding, paralleling. What was that word? Parallelly with everything else. But I mean, what's that like to look at this journey and go, wow, we actually have made some progress? I mean, what goes on in your head?
Yeah. Well, I think the greatest thing now is the fact that there are other people going through the same thing, and we can connect with them. And at the time, because I doubted my own sanity, you know, back in the 60s when I went through this, and they're here, they're trying to fix me, and they almost had me believing that I was really ill. And it was a mental aberration rather than a spiritual awakening. And so, I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I could step into the next dimension and do actually amazing things. I mean, it sounds like a trivial thing, but I'll tell a wee story. They had a pool table at the psychiatric hospital, and I would play on it. And I kind of tested myself and stepped into the other dimension, and I could not miss. I could not miss a shot. And later on, I joined a bar team playing pool, and occasionally I could not miss.
Right.
And
Right.
I've seen it happen once or twice too.
I remember one time I went skiing. This was when I was living in the Sierras. And I came in to take a break, and I got on the pool table, and you know, people put their quarter up to challenge you, and I held the table for 4 hours.
Wow.
But anyway, that's enough.
But you know, that's true though. My sons and I talk about this in regard to, like, they skateboard and play basketball. I play basketball. That there's this certain groove you get into, right? like it's a wordless place. It's this just a feeling. It's a field of energy, and you're like at the helm of it. And I've always found like the minute I start to think about what I'm doing, it goes away.
Yeah.
Right.
God.
I think that that's a characteristic or even really an attribute of what we're walking into.
Very fortunate. We've met a lot of people that know how to get into the groove. I mean, at one point we were friends with Larry Evans. He was 5-time U.S. chess champion.
He talked about the groove.
He could get into the groove playing chess. I mean, 5-time U.S. champion. I mean, wow. And even here in New Zealand, we know the national. Here in New Plymouth, we have the national champion for archery. We have a world record holder weightlifter who's a friend of ours, and several other people that are just dynamic in their fields.
Right.
And they're, you can be dynamic in any field, but it's just getting into the groove, loving what you do, and forgetting self. I think that's the key thing. When you forget self and get into the groove, it's just such a wonderful place.
I want to add to that. It's also something necessary for human beings because you feel truly happy when you're in that flow. And the flow concept is the other half of that.
Yeah.
See, my wife just said, you've truly been in the groove for the last 2 nights, Mr. Medina. But everything. Yeah, I'm kidding. But whether it's sacred sexual intimacy or shooting pool or playing ball or dancing or writing, and to what you just said, both of you, it's becoming, whatever that is becoming more and more part of our lifestyle. It's becoming a lifestyle. It's becoming what we are, not just individually, but collectively. And, this is where, to me, like the more telepathy becomes a part of our conscious existence. In other words, it's always been there, but we've not like really plugged into it because everyone's telling us we're crazy. But there'll be fewer conversations. There'll be more natural, flow. We'll can you imagine walking down the street and seeing somebody just going into a dance or a song or, whatever lights them up and the contagious aspect of that as people start to.
I got a little story about that. I remember I was about 10 years old, I'm guessing maybe 9. And I was walking down the street with a friend of mine and we both started whistling the exact same song at the exact same time. And it was just one of those little synchronistic moments of, and it's just, it's really, really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that happening too, where there's the symmetry.
Yes.
And I saw this happen over the last 4 or 5 days, and it was mind blowing to be having a conversation with somebody, and all of a sudden, somebody, as that one's fading out, another one steps in, and it's so seamless. It's like you're talking to one being, yet there's different beings involved.
Yeah.
But isn't that the reality?
Yeah. And also the fact that, I mean, we think of ourselves as one being, me personally, Glenn, I am one being. But no, I have all these trillions of cells, and each of those cells is an individual within itself.
Yeah.
And as well as the organs in the body, your heart has a mind, your stomach has a mind. And it's just, when you start thinking about the quantum stuff, it's mind-boggling. It's hard to wrap your head around it and lose the linearity thinking, because that's what we need to step out of.
Yeah, we need to move into parallelly. I'm just playing with you, but you're right. And I it's so funny because we spend a lot of time, like even on this show, talking about what's going on. What does it feel like? What's your experience? And so on and so on and so on. And at the end of the day, sometimes I lay my head on the pillow and I'm just like, you know what? There are a lot of complications to this, and maybe I just need to accept that the toughest thing to accept is what I truly am, what my natural nature is. Like, it's almost like you're pinching yourself going, man, this is too good to be true. When's the shoe going to drop? But
Yeah.
this expansion that's occurring, at least I can speak of the field in this community from what I expose myself to and what I'm a part of. It seems no matter what the ups and downs are, no matter what the activations or the downloads are, or the energy coming in, or the Schumann resonance, there seems to be a very steady expansion occurring. And what I'm noticing is people are having more and more and more confidence in their untraditional skills, abilities, and sensitivities. Unlike what happened to you, where you expanded, your telepathy expanded, yet there was nothing there to catch you. Everywhere you turned, if you talked to somebody about it, I'm sure they told you were crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of strange having two simultaneous conversations going on at once. One verbal and one telepathic.
The fact that they were different.
And the fact that they were different. Yeah. And it's just doesn't make for stability.
That happens a lot on this show, but I think it's happening a lot for people all around. There's a little lag.
Yeah. Another detail is, what is the ritual that allows you to move to that space in yourself? And if you look at the Buddhist tradition, you have to remember that's the only reality. That synchronistic flow in the moment is the goal of Buddha's thought as well.
Yeah.
So it's ultimately the goal, and you actually need part of that in your life in some form. It's like dream sleep and deep dream sleep, or dreamless sleep. You'd have to have both of those, or your mind doesn't function correctly. You actually need this, and this is actually the normal. We've been trained into something that hasn't been normal, and that's the people go, you must be crazy. I got around it by bookishness.
Yeah,
that was my protection. I didn't get declared crazy. Donna's a little strange, but nothing more than that because of it. Because I could always go, oh, the book I'm reading right now is. So it required protection for most of our lives. But right now, organizations like what you're doing, Spiritualist Church, people meeting in circles, you're finding the people you can talk and share with.
Yeah.
And that's been a tremendous relief.
Yeah,
Not to mention finding each other.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I hear that more than anything else. I hear people that write messages or emails or comments they make is that, hey, thank you for introducing me to all the people that are crazy like me, and now I know I'm not crazy. Yeah, and I was amazed because this thing really took a different turn in mid-2018 when Morgan came for the second time, and we had a sacred union ceremony, and she took over the frequency. Because I guess I had established a frequency which was really motivated and I put it in human terms, trying to impress my muse, right? I mean, like, let me show her how big my heart is. Let me, it was always a masculine, feminine thing. But when she came in, very conscious, said, this is where we're going to go. That was a really big thing. People really started to come to the table and say, hey, can I speak? But in those stories, they had never spoken before, most of them women. In those stories, you found that these people were doing all this work for 10, 15, 20 years. And no matter how much ridicule that they received from their family and all the things that went with it, such as, don't go get a regular job. This is your higher self. Just go help people and we'll provide for you. But it doesn't work the same way. And all those things that go with it, they still continue to do it. And they still hung in there. So for those people, more than anything is why I show up every day, because they need to know that they're not the odd ones out. They're not the black sheep to the golden child, as Morgan says, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a very important thing. And we've been blessed. moving to New Zealand in 96, we found ourselves connecting with more and more people, sitting in circles,
Yep. Yep.
interesting workshops, the presence of the spiritualist church
And
here.
we met more and more mediums and psychics.
Yep.
Yep.
And you could do workshops like the one where I learned about channeling and then suddenly could find a way to do it.
Yeah.
And that possibility. So anything that makes it acceptable to your community starts the process of making it acceptable inside yourself, which is really good.
Yeah. Really good. There's a lot of talk about, of course, there's a lot of talk about twin flames. We don't really, resonate with that term. There is something though that to me makes more sense, which is uniform with the individual energy field or the individual universe, which is divine marriage. At least in this realm, in this experience where we have duality, and what are the base components of that? Masculine and feminine. So divine marriage, divine union. So you guys have been swimming in that pool for quite some time.
Yeah, it's interesting because here I went into a field of special needs education, which is predominantly a female field. It's mostly women that go into that. And here I meet this welder, and
he's a machinist. I'm the welder.
Yeah, she actually had to teach me to weld because I got a job. I was teaching at a high school, and I taught metal shop. And one of my jobs was to teach welding. I had never welded in my life. And so Donna taught me to weld so I could teach them.
I need to explain. I'm an art teacher, but with a rather odd collection of skills.
Yeah. So she went to actually the largest welding school in the world in Texas. And
San Jacinto Junior Community College, which supplies welders for the Texas pipeline. And so it was a formal welding course.
I'm
so
from
it's
Houston.
been You're from Houston, then you know San Jacinto, the little community. Yeah. It's got 1,000 welding students. Let me explain why I know how to weld. I'm a bronze caster. I'm a sculptor.
Oh, speaking of that, we're starting a new career again. I mean, at 70, we're starting a new career. We're going to be opening a bronze foundry within a couple of months. Wow. And I'll show you a bronze.
If it opens up.
Slide to the side.
If you can see it. Leo.
This is Leo.
I see it. I can see it now a little bit better. It's a little bit blurry.
Should I move it closer?
It's a bit heavy.
Oh yeah. If you can. If you can't, don't put yourself up. I can see. Yeah, I can see the profile of it now.
Yeah,
about 60.
It's pretty heavy. Ah! There you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
wow.
The eyes are obsidian.
Wait a minute.
Apache tears.
Wow. So you, Donna, you made this?
I made the foundry that made it.
And she made the bronze itself as well.
Yeah, I made bronze.
That's what I mean. It's amazing. That looks like a lot.
Not only does she make bronzes, she's made foundries. We actually help other people
build foundries.
And we've done it, 5 or 6 times now.
Wow.
So an atypical combination of skills, but it works really well because he's a machinist and I'm the welder. And it's been much easier to do the fabrication. And then at some point, because I'm sure we're going to stay connected. I think what you're doing is incredibly important.
Yeah.
We'll send you some film of a pour. They're pretty. They're very pretty things.
Yeah, that would be cool. We could definitely play.
Not only fine art, we're going to be making bells and kind of healing bells. Actually.
And to carry spiritual messages.
Yeah.
Lettering on the outside of the bells because the bells are handmade.
Because everything is vibration. So, and we're going to try to keep the cost down. They're going to be fairly small.
But it's also for us to learn to work with the frequency and the sound of the bell because it has to be a beautiful sound, but you can do a lot with the shape of the bell to change the quality of the sound.
Yeah. And I've been researching bells lately, the difference between, say, like a church bell and a Hindu bell. They actually put a rim around a Hindu bell that changes the frequency a bit, because about 3/4 of the way up, there's a ring around it, and that's kind of the sweet point of it. And they're attempting to go for the Om sound within the bell.
Yeah, which is interesting.
So there's a lot to
Interesting.
it.
That sounds like an interesting creation, and I don't want to use a word to take away from it, but product. And what I mean by that is product in the sense of a consciously created product. So not only do you have the shape and you have the material, but you also have the sound, which is
bringing
fascinating.
spirituality down to a physical level, which was what we're here to do as well. As a physical beings, we're bringing our spirituality down to this level, as well as raising our vibrations to.
And remember, we do talk about vibration.
Yeah.
As the goal. Anyways, it's an atypical skill. And you're from Houston. What area of Houston were you from?
Well, I was actually born in Corpus Christi, and I lived all over.
Wow.
I lived all over Texas, and I lived around the country. But I lived in Houston. That was my home base for probably close to 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I lived in the West Side, Memorial area, Memorial to Katy, Memorial to Katy.
Pasadena, Deer Park, for me, South Side.
Oh, you're from Houston.
I am from Houston.
Oh, you're from the blue collar side. I spent a lot of time. Yeah. What's that?
I don't have a proper Texas accent. My parents were Virginians.
Oh, okay. That's okay. I got plenty for both of us. I got plenty of Texas accent for both of us. Powerful area, though. I mean, all the areas everywhere is an opportunity. People talk about portals, and obviously Sedona. I mean, there's something going on in
we've been there a couple times.
Yeah, but there's places, Shasta, Ayers Rock. I mean, New Zealand, I know, has got some incredible places. Hawaii, but I found
we've been to every place you just mentioned.
Yeah, that isn't surprising.
That's part of the spiritual quest, is because they reinforce it. There are people there who have that awareness.
Yeah,
it's really good those sites have formed because it helps.
Yeah.
It's an interesting phenomena.
Yeah. Well, and then the cities too. I mean, I had my reawakening in 2011 in the heart of Houston, in the heart of the energy corridor, 7077. Now, I hadn't met Morgan. I was talking to a few people. I was launching Soulogy One Studios. But I live next to a cemetery, and I would take walks in the cemetery, and that's where I got a lot of my tutelage. But I was actually walking the block, and then 2 blocks, and then 3 blocks, as we all do, follow that guidance, and basically, I guess, doing grid work, shining light onto these matrix, apparatuses represented by these buildings of all the oil and gas companies around the world. But my point is that there's it's funny too, because I spent some time in New York City. There's also a lot of potential portal activity or threads or streams that you can pick up on in the denser environments like in New York or Houston.
True.
Yeah. Cities have their own vibration. And it's not all negative. I mean, people, I don't want to live in a city. I want to live in the country. But there actually are positive aspects in cities themselves.
Yeah. You have to come out occasionally.
Yeah.
So,
sorry.
No. There's a bit of a lag. We're not purposely interrupting each other. It's just a bit of a lag. I was gonna ask you about, before we go on to the next thing, in your relationship. I've got a myriad of questions I could ask, but one of the things that we're really starting to discover, which is, as we all know, the real knowledge comes in from experience and not from being instructed, right?
Yeah.
So that would be around what people struggle to name, which you could call it sacred sexuality, chi, life force, kundalini. But there just seems to be this huge, talk about portals. There seems to be like a multiverse of portals in that atmosphere that is being brought to the human level. And I'm talking about visitations, apparitions, downloads, channelings, things that you see with your physical eyes, the third eye merging with the physical eyes and seeing the ceiling disappear, just all kinds of stuff. Have you guys had an experience? Have you experienced anything like that? I mean, and of course, intimacy can be holding hands. It can be, having a nice dinner at home. It could be a lot of things. But have you seen in your experience any type of connection between the level of the frequency that you anchor together and what comes with it or after
I
it?
think I think it's part of it is manifestation in things that we need or want or whatever, like and not just physical things. I mean, our relationship has well, it's great from the start actually, but it even gets better. I mean, if that how can you do better than great?
Are
I
we,
mean,
are we coming up on 26 years now?
26 years together, and
27.
second time around for both of us.
Both seconds.
Wow.
The other thing is in that relationship forming, there is an assistance moving forward because and I do agree with you, it's experience. You can learn things, you can learn that it exists, but you have to physically try it yourself before you know for sure. But I find the relationship is the help and the step up. He supports, okay, I'll hold the space for you.
And also, I think the leadership, it's give and take.
It's give and take.
Because sometimes one person is not up to par and they have to step back a little bit, and then the other person needs to make the decisions of what's going to happen. Yeah. Or if we see the other person starting to go the wrong way or make a bad decision, not necessarily bad, but there could be a better way. We have to step up and say something and point out, here's a better way.
Good communication.
And Donna does that to me a lot, which I needed.
I think that's just flat. But no, I do. Now, in terms of a shared psychic experience, if you're doing regular meditation, and also certain locations, because like going to Sedona or so forth, if you're in a relationship that has that spiritual development as a goal, it does tend to cause things to happen.
Yeah,
you see things.
Yeah. What we've been doing,
happen.
What we've been doing on YouTube lately, actually, it's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter.
Meditation
reflections, and every time we sit there in silence and we don't even plan what we're going to meditate on.
What comes from spirit,
what comes through, and it always parallels.
Yeah,
every single time. I'll be thinking of whatever, it doesn't matter, and she'll get a similar thing, and we can link it together, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Also, occasionally you get a sense of where something is. These usually have to do with ETs, and I can confirm it.
Yeah.
So it's the ability to have a similar psychic awareness in the same location leads to seeing other things. Sometimes you see something that could be an unusual natural phenomena, but why is it occurring right now in this location when we're both together and we've both been deliberately meditating?
Yeah.
So it's like a complementary clairs.
Yeah,
exactly. It enhances.
It's a linked meditation, and that's why it parallels.
Yeah.
So we're parallelers.
I'm digging this new language. So we've noticed that too. Like, and I love what you said earlier about what could be a natural occurrence. So you can't really, like, so much of the gold that comes all of our ways, which is you can look at it and go, oh, that's a coincidence, but in reality, it's that subtle knowing beneath it, it's not. But like for us, there'll be many times that we'll go through, an activation, integration, and then expansion. One of the big ones like that. Everyone just went through in the last 10 days, and you come out of it, and we'll walk outside, and it'll start pouring rain, like that. Like it's just weird. We had a friend come by like 3 or 4 months ago. And there was this whole thing she was going through, and she had to go to the East Coast, and then she had to go here. And she goes, "I'm coming by, and I'm coming by." And she came by, and we were all that first night just standing in the backyard where we have like this forest behind us. And out of nowhere, this thunderstorm comes in and just drenches us. So there's something about what you're saying that has a literally an instant manifestation effect on the environment, a much broader term than just what we might think in the physical frequency. But there's something about that. I get what you're saying. It's almost like a storybook, like you're turning page after page after page.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of a story I could tell on myself. I'm very interested in shamanism.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were having a drought here. This is going back how many years? Maybe 10 years ago. And this is Taranaki, and
droughts are rare.
Before it was all cleared, the land was cleared for farming and raising cows. It was a rainforest here, so just huge amounts of rainfall. But anyway, we had a summer with very, very little rain, and they were panicking about it. So I decided, I know a little bit about shamanism. Let's have a rain dance. So I organized one. We put ads in the paper. I got on 5 different radio stations, the local radio stations. So we set a time to have a rain dance. We were all going to meet in this park and bring your drum, and we're going to sing and dance and make it rain. And my intent was to make it rain within 24 hours of the dance. It bucketed down. It just drenched everything. The only problem is it did it 24 hours before the event.
Yeah, right.
So we were the only ones that, there was one other person that showed up to.
Well, and actually we had 8 or 9 people who came to help us.
It was Jeanette and
Andrew and his kids.
And one other person. So anyway, we had a few people, but basically just to give thanks for the rain. But anyway, here it is.
Oh, the book he didn't get to show you last time.
Yeah, here's my book, The Water Chronicles. That's one of the stories in the book, is about the
rain dance.
The rain dance. So
The Water Chronicles.
Yeah.
And on that note too, I want to make sure that I don't miss this before we get out here. The Water Chronicles. So like, where can people find you individually?
Amazon.
Together. Okay, so the book's Amazon.
Yeah, yeah. And find it in Kindle form, so you can do a little preview on it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in New Zealand, you can get a signed copy.
Yeah.
I'll show you the difference. This is the New Zealand printed copy. This is the Amazon. They're slightly different. And the neat thing about the New Zealand copy is this is a beautiful color thing that Donna did. She illustrated the book, by the way. And and here
it's black and white.
It's where is it? It's not even here.
There it is, black and white.
Black and white, and this is the Amazon copy. But anyway.
And again, his website has the meditation reflections on it, and the YouTube site.
But she's got quite a few little drawings in here like this. Donna illustrated it.
Mm-hmm. So you're much more than a sculptor and a welder.
Oh yeah,
I'm a
all
trained
mediums.
artist.
Yeah, no, she's an amazing person.
I taught art, so they made sure I knew how to do a whole bunch.
As well as art history, not just art, but art history as well.
So now, did the two of you share space in on the internet in terms of a website or social media?
I've been encouraging her to get her own website.
Okay.
But naturalshaman.com is my website.
And it has our meditation reflection. I'm probably planning on the website once I have the first batch of bronzes, which is going to be soon.
Okay, very cool. Have you seen the work of, I just put it up, naturalshaman.com? I just put that. Have you seen the work of oh my God, I'm forgetting his name now. He's from Sedona, John Soderbergh. Have you seen his stuff?
Vaguely familiar, but I'll go look it up immediately. Sedona has one of my favorite bronze foundries is at Sedona. They're capable of doing some amazing stuff, and I went there to spend some time with them. And I don't, but it was also
wasn't that Arizona? Oh, well, no,
Sedona.
I was thinking of Arcosanti.
Arcosanti is in Arizona too.
Yeah.
So, when's the last time you were in Sedona?
Unfortunately, that would have been 88.
Okay.
No, we've been there more recently.
No, I was there.
Oh, I see.
I was there for 6 weeks.
Oh, I see.
Where were you there?
Who, me? I just got back from there.
Oh, envy.
Back from my 6th trip.
Where are you now?
We were in Arkansas, right outside of Fort Smith, Arkansas, in a small town called Van Buren. And it's we were guided here, we were led here, and this is where we're based out of for now. But it's a powerful area. I think for me my gut feeling is, whatever you call it, what you want, that there's going to be, like, there's been PowerPoints under the radar, that they don't have the prominence of a Shasta or a Sedona or Uluru. And I feel like Arkansas is one of those. I really do. I feel like that it's been under the radar,
There's also the fact I've kind of felt like there's been places that need help, and that's why we're here. This is not a Sedona here at all.
But we've worked. You've had a shop. We've done things to help, and it's spreading across the planet.
We've got
a lot of forms.
We've got just over 2 acres here, and we're creating a sculpture garden as well as a meditation garden for different types of meditation. Whether it's there's just because there's so many different forms of meditation.
Yes. So where are you in New Zealand?
We're on the North Island. We're on the west coast of Taranaki Peninsula.
Big peninsula coming out to the south
and
to the west.
There's a central single volcano there. It's kind of looks like Mount Fuji.
Okay.
And
it's called Peninsula?
Taranaki.
Taranaki. Taranaki.
Oh, I spelled it right. Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because we have a lot of friends in New Zealand.
I saw the one Jenny Jones and what's the other guy? He's my age.
Nikki Hammond.
Nicky Hammond. Yeah, he's a Facebook friend, and so is Jenny. I got a reading from Jenny. She's really good.
Yeah, she is. She's real good. I liked her a lot, talking to her. And I just wanted to get an idea. Honey Hone Edmonds, who actually lives at...
No.
Yeah.
Honey, we saw your interview.
Yeah.
It was really good. And also he was interviewed by who else? No. He was interviewed by Jenny. Yeah, that was a really good interview.
Speaking of honey, hold up a jar there. We're beekeepers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we're really good at it. We got the proof. Here, grab that.
We
won best honey in Taranaki 2 years in a row.
Is that right?
Now, when you come for a visit, because you have a standing invitation, you get to have a taste.
Yeah.
You can't mail this to people.
Honey is like one of my favorite things to ingest.
This honey tastes like butter.
Oh, it's
my God. Yeah.
So, but you can't mail it because of the Varroa question. But we had 4 hives currently.
Yeah.
We were living in 2019. The first few months of 2019, we lived on Kauai in Hawaii.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
And we lived on an organic farm about a mile out of Kapa'a. And the lady that was the property mother or manager, whatever you want to call it, beautiful lady, I want to say she was about 83, something like that, 84, but she was a German. and she was about 5'9" and in very good health, although she was starting to slow down a little bit. But one of the things she did is she'd get out there and work with the bees. She'd
Yeah.
make honey with none of the equipment on or anything. Just get out there and
Oh,
work
she's
with
good.
Yeah.
That was
I've known
freaky.
people like that.
Yeah.
That was freaky. I got to tell you a funny story too, because I didn't know. I there's certain parts of me, like all of us, it's very naive, and so I came out of the front of the building, and it was next to a pasture, and I'm walking to my car, and I hear all this buzzing, right? I hear all this zzz, and all these bees were inside of this bush. And Morgan comes out, and I said, Morgan, get away from that bush. All the bees have escaped. I didn't know.
breakfast lunch.
He's like, you idiot. They fly in and out freely. That's their home, But speaking of the bee box I thought they were imprisoned in there. I didn't know. But, good times.
You don't know.
Do you guys have anything that you want to do before we get out of here? I mean, any kind of prayers, meditations, blessings, song and dance, or just anything that you want to talk about in relation to what you're doing, what you got coming up? The floor is yours.
Do you want to do a closing?
Why don't we both do it? You do part, and I'll do it. We'll do a closing prayer for you. I really enjoyed this. This is a fascinating idea, and hope that we stay in touch.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I would add one other piece of information. In a shared relationship, you also have the influx of spirit to teach, and it's a teach-learn. They learn from us, and they teach us. And I think it's enhanced if you're working in a circle or working with friends, and the more people you know who can help confirm the information or help you expand the information.
Mhm.
So I think what you're doing is incredibly important.
Yeah.
So our relationship is a way of teach, learn, share, and intensification. And anything that allows you to expand your spiritual awareness is helping everybody on the planet.
Yeah. If you're a reader out there, check out the Law of One books.
Yeah.
I highly recommend those.
For books,
Yeah.
books on it.
Channeled books by what's her name?
Sorry.
Carla Rupert.
Carla Rupert, that's right.
Ruckert.
Ruckert.
Anyway, yeah. So,
a blessing.
Blessings to everyone.
Blessings from New Zealand, and we're at the outside corner of the world, which is worth seeing if you ever get a chance to go exploring. But our planet, I really identified with the connection to Earth.
Yeah.
Because that's incredibly important, because it's the Earth that's making the change,
and
we have to help.
We are a cell of the Earth. Each of us individually is another cell of the Earth itself. Mm-hmm. Just as we have cells, it does.
The Anshar that I channel, her name is Amatri, and she tells some fascinating stories about how they go about developing the telepathy both in their children, and then help them relearn it after adolescence. And then what happens with the level 5th density elders, and why the culture as a whole meditates regularly. Yeah. And so the more we learn about all the supporting spirits that are available, they are here to help us.
Yeah.
And you always know you're getting good advice when it's positive and it's increasing your choices.
Yeah.
Then it's trustworthy.
I like that. It's positive and it's increasing your choices.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I see someone who's channeling, and from that channel there's an absolute thrown down of you must vote for this person.
Nope.
That is not positive, and that is not giving me more choices.
I'll give it a little. I have periodically done readings, but I do an atypical reading. It's called a painted reading. A person makes a scribble on a piece of paper, and I look at the scribble and turn it into something. It's an interesting way. It means people can take it home with them. And you can verify a reading by it's positive and increases the choices. And it's a bit of a surprise to the poor reader. My God, why in the world did I paint a lady riding a motorcycle pulling a large tortoise because she can't get it to move that
Made
way?
perfect sense to the person getting the reading.
The
Anyway,
person-
we
yeah, we should let
really
you go.
love being here, and we thank you so much for
Yes.
allowing us to share a bit of our lives with you.
Absolutely. We'll have to do it again.
Yes.
You guys take
Well-
care. You guys take care. All blessings to you and all your endeavors. And thank you so much for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. And until the next time.
Definitely. Blessings.
Bye.